3, 2, 1, go. And we're live. This is Retraice segment number 107 for Thursday, January 5th, 2023. Day 5, Chapter 5 of our deep dive into AIMA4e, Artificial Intelligence and Modern Approach. Chapter 5 is Adversarial Search in Games. Retraice is about what's going on out there. The short answer to that is computer control. The long answer to that is not going to happen today, but we're going to get into some old Retraice stuff because we're starting to get answers to questions that we either raised implicitly or explicitly in what I call like Retraice 1.0 before we took the technical turn. What am I talking about? Well, let's go to the notes. So the notes will guide us through. And the other thing is, I don't know, it takes 2 tries. The other thing is that, I don't know if this, like I've said this or not, it should go without saying, I'm not trying to do a comprehensive treatment of Chapter 5. Might do that in the future. Not doing that today. We're just going one day at a time. And so what have we found? Well, what's the title of this thing? I mean, what is the title of this? I gotta scroll up. 3 kinds of AI. Yeah, okay. I do know what I'm doing here, but I'm doing too many things. All right. Let's start with, this is basically the opening passage in Chapter 5. I'll just read it. There are at least 3 stances we can take towards multi-agent environments. The first stance, appropriate when there are a very large number of agents, is to consider them in an aggregate as an economy, allowing us to do things like predict that increasing demand will cause prices to rise without having to predict the action of any individual agent. Second, we could consider adversarial agents as just a part of the environment, a part that makes the environment non-deterministic. But if we model the adversaries in the same way that, say, rain sometimes falls and sometimes doesn't, we miss the idea that our adversaries are actively trying to defeat us, whereas the rain supposedly has no such intention. The third stance is to explicitly model the adversarial agents with the techniques of adversarial game tree search. That is what this chapter covers. Okay? I didn't have any special reaction to that when I read it the first time, which was today. But then I read the rest of the chapter, and things started to jump out at me. I mean, really, I wasn't searching for this. I had absolutely no intent of finding some parallel like this, but I found a parallel. Let's continue. War, peace, and commerce AI is what we're calling the 3 kinds of AI. So let's call commerce, and it corresponds to the 3. They say there are at least 3, but these are the 3 stances they give toward multi-agent environments. And if you don't remember or you forget, multi-agent environments are just environments where you're not the only agent or your agent is not the only agent, okay? So let's call commerce AI when we model the environment as having too many agents to deal with individually, and so we can think about it the way we think about markets and economies. Markets and prices, supply and demand, that sort of thing. Now we're going to get into a little bit of weirdness. Stay with me. Try and stay with me. Peace AI is what I would call Nick Bostrom's capacity building. As long as we're modeling the relevant part of the environment as only having one agent and we're not using agent-oriented software engineering, all that means is, just like we discussed in, when was a recent Retraice where we did the box was the environment and then the little box was the agent. In that agent, we sort of have a choice when we model environments. Are we going to model this much of the environment as the agent, or this much, or a tiny bit? Which part of it is the agent? It's up to you. You're modeling. The purpose of the modeling, as explained by Russell and Norvig, is to aid in the analysis of systems. Okay, so there's no absolute way to decide what in an environment is an agent and what of the environment or the rest of the environment is not an agent. So if we're modeling our environment as having, the relevant part of the environment as having just one agent, and we're not doing, sort of implicitly, we're not doing agent-oriented software engineering where you're actually trying to conceptualize a subset of object-oriented programming as being agent-oriented programming, and agents have certain attributes, blah, blah, blah. I don't really know I don't know anything about that, but I know that it's an option out there and that it's interesting to me. Then we're dealing with what I would call peace AI. Bostrom's capacity building is one of the 2 answers he gives to his superintelligence problem. What can we do now sort of answers in the lead up to this owl that's coming. I don't know if you've seen the cover of the book, but it's, hey, I've got it. Why don't I just, there. The owl. How do we prepare for the owl What Skronkfinkel? You don't know the parable of Skronkfinkel. The unfinished fable of the sparrows and Skronk. Oh, anyway. So how do we prepare for the owl? Well, one way that he gives, this is, I forget, the pages in the notes, 317, I think, is to build capacity. Get like-minded, smart people working together, pooling their money and doing whatever needs to be done to get ready for this. And then the other recommended action, because it's sensitive what actions you do in response to the lead up to the prospect of super intelligence. You can easily do things that seem like they're a good idea, but they actually make the problem worse. So like you bring it on more quickly, or he talks about the difficulty of knowing the sign, as in positive or negative, of what you're doing in trying to prepare for the arrival of super intelligence. Which, by the way, is not the only thing you're doing right now. Even if that is, and it is, probably a prospect that we should be dealing with. It's not the only doom and gloom or highly important prospect we should be dealing with in the negative or on the bad side, the pessimistic side of the future of artificial intelligence. Anyway, he gives two ways of preparing that he is pretty confident are good ideas: capacity building and strategic analysis. So in peace AI, I would say there's a correspondence to capacity building. So we're just saying that in our model of the environment, the relevant part of the environment, there's only one agent, and that's humanity. And he doesn't put it this way, and I'm sure he would, not agree with what I'm saying here, but he's not here, so I can say whatever I want. We're the agent, and the environment doesn't have the other agent yet. It's going to have another agent. It's going to become the multi-agent environment, and then the game changes. Then we get on to the next kind of AI. But until we get to that, at least as far as the superintelligence problem goes, we are in peacetime AI, so we should be building a good capacity and doing strategic analysis. Okay, so that's peacetime AI or peace AI, not peacetime AI, but it's delusional, right? Like you're never, and that's that's sort of the point of that's the thing that stands out to me about the idea of peace AI as opposed to war AI, which we'll talk about next, is that there's no peace. There is no peace, only war. No, you're always either in an economic environment or an economic and war environment. The war, if you can delineate when it starts and stops, which you can. Let's say it's defined by kinetic, but you can't because nowadays it's cyber, and we could talk about that. And we've never even talked about the cyber. There's a whole world out there. I keep talking about it and not talking about it. But there is no peace. But if we're going to have war AI, and if we're going to make sense of the three stances toward multi-agent environments provided, they don't say they're the only three, but at least these three provided by Russell and Norvig, that the one where we treat agents that we know about in the environment as just the part that makes it non-deterministic. So we're not saying when we're doing strategic analysis and capacity building, and the owl hasn't arrived, and we're not talking about U.S. war with China or Russia or cyber syndicate or evil genius Dr. Evil. If you're just dealing with the owl and your preparation for the owl, you're modeling all the other agents in your environment, and they're surely there unless everybody's dead and you're just by yourself. And even then, how would you know? What killed all those people? We're getting too far afield. You're modeling them, all the other agents, as just things in the environment that make it non-deterministic. Things that just make it so that the future isn't just dictated by what you do and the laws of physics of the environment. There are things that can change the future in this environment that are not to do with your actions and not to do with the laws of physics of the environment. So those agents make it non-deterministic. Okay, that's peace AI. Now, probably more interested in war AI. I would say, it's hard for me. I don't want to scroll down because you're going to be distracted by what I wrote below. War AI, the search changes at the point of an adversary argument. So yesterday we talked about, is it here? Tell me it's right here. It's not right lined up. I was hoping I'd get lucky. Adversary, yes, but no. Yes, there. When we talked yesterday about this diagram, how an adversary could construct over here in the B part of the diagram, an adversary could keep constructing these walls so that you get to your goal state as inefficiently as possible, or the adversary could construct the whole maze-like environment so that when you're at this state A, you can't tell which way is the dead end, which way is the goal direction, and there's no backtracking, and so you have no way of making this decision. It's a coin flip. The game changes at this point. This is actually not in Chapter 5. This is in Chapter 4. That's why we talked about it yesterday. But the game changes when you have adversary arguments. The game, right? Like it becomes a game. But I mean, not in the technical sense of game. I mean, just in the sort of colloquial, this is different. This is a different feeling. That's war AI. Let's call that war AI. When there's an adversary argument, there doesn't actually have to be, I'm not sure about this, but I don't think there has to be an actual adversary. You just have to be in an environment where there could be one, which might be all environments. Okay, now we're into Bostrom's strategic analysis, sort of the results of strategic analysis. So you can do strategic analysis during peace AI or in a peace AI environment, or doing peace AI in an environment where you say there are no other agents, where you're not treating them as agents. But the results of strategic analysis become relevant in war AI, and they're also relevant in commerce AI. But what he's talking about is much more like war than commerce. We're probably not going to be doing deals with the owl. Okay, the owl doesn't want to do deals. The owl's not interested in our wares. Okay. So yeah, those are the three kinds of AI, and I'm calling it out because it just never occurred to me. Like, I wasn't looking for three kinds of AI. I didn't even notice it until I was basically done with the chapter. And then I noticed like one piece of it, and then I was like, wait a second, they called out the three stances on agents. So anyway, that's on page 148. It'll all be in the notes. Okay, finally, and so this started, I think, yesterday. We're starting to, recently, in the last 2 or 3 segments, we're starting to get answers to questions that we asked implicitly or explicitly here on Retraice, most of which came before what I'm calling the technical turn. Retraice 2.0, we're doing technical stuff. We're talking about the Great White Brick, AIMA4e. We're doing code on the podcast. All this stuff that was not normal for this podcast until we did the technical turn. Okay, so Retraice 2.0. I think most of the questions I'm going to talk about occurred more or less before or right at the technical turn. So why does the computer control game feel like a game theoretic game or war? We asked that on 1119. It's all in the, can't easily do the re-citation when I don't know my style. Never mind. Okay, my .sty file, it doesn't handle that. Okay, the answer to that question, why does the computer control game feel like a game theoretic game and war? Well, it's just chapter 4. Chapter 5. It should be chapter 4 and 5. No, it's chapter 5. It starts in chapter 4. I got to fix that. So imagine a 4 and 5 there. I whipped these notes together too quickly. Okay, so why? Just look at how throughout chapter 5 especially, which is adversarial search in games, although it really establishes itself during search in complex environments, because what makes them complex is the same sort of stuff that makes them adversarial. Hence, peace AI can be seen as both a multi-agent or a single-agent environment, depending on what you know about your decisions when you model the environment. This whole chapter is progressively more difficult games. Starts with more or less. It's not a perfect staircase or line upward. It's a bit sawtooth. From chess, basically from tic-tac-toe, checkers, and chess to more and more difficult versions of those games, and then all the way up to like massive multiplayer online games that are more or less like the hardest sorts of environments you can, hardest sorts of agent environments you can face. And what do we mean by a hard environment? Well, we just take the environment model. I forget, it's in the notes again here, but partially observe this list of features of the environment: partially observable, multi-agent, non-deterministic, sequential, dynamic, continuous, and unknown. We talked about those previously. It's on the same segment where we talked. It's which one is it? It is agent function. This one, Re104. Re104 was the answer to the other thing, I think, too. Maybe. Okay. So okay. So that's why it feels like, that's why I said in 1119, which is Re55, I said it feels like a game, but it also doesn't feel like a game. It feels like war. And like when I said it felt like a game, I didn't mean like, oh, this is not important. It's kind of just fun and games. No, not fun and games kind of game, game theory kind of game. And I said that in the podcast and the notes. But I didn't know necessarily why, or I didn't have a technical answer. I mean, before the technical turn, I didn't have a technical answer to the lay question that wanted a technical answer, that wasn't going to be satisfied with a lay answer. The lay question wants a technical answer if the lay questioner has the prerequisites and foundations to understand the technical answer. Okay. What other questions? Well, what do players do? And we asked that in 11.16, 11.18, Re52 and Re54. The answer came in 1.3, Re107, solve. Players solve. Players in the AI computer control game theory game, they solve. We talked about that at length. Okay, final question. Not the final question, but final question for today. What will war AI and general mobilization look like? We asked that 11.3, which was Re69. At the end of the table-driven agent, we were just sort of reflecting and wrapping up table-driven agent, and we started thinking about that. I think I have an answer to that. I mean, I'm not just, like, I swear I wasn't thinking at all, or I didn't intend to come up with this, but it does sort of seem to present itself. I don't know if I'll agree with this in 6 months, but I definitely agree with it now. What will it look like? It'll look like solving and deploying those solutions, AI solutions, to hard game problem environments. Remember, the AIMA guys at one point, is it 66? They describe agents and agents being the solution to environments. And is it no, it's not 66. I'm not going to be able to find it off the top. Anyway, it's in the notes. So war AI and general mobilization will look like players solving, sort of like during World War II, Turing and the guys. I think I.J. Good was part of that team as well. They did what was it called, the bomb? But they did something before that was cracking the German codes. It was like it wasn't like they didn't have a machine cracking the codes, but anyway, they had to solve. They were solving, and it wasn't on paper. It wasn't just on paper. It was this big cranking machine, and it was awesome. The movie was awesome. I don't know. I mean, it wasn't awesome. The reality of it wasn't awesome. Awesome that they did it though, and that they were on our team. Solving, but also deploying solutions. We're not going to be sitting around building machines. It's too late if you're in a war with another country or another entity. I mean, I want to be clear here. The war that I'm anticipating, and I'm just like everybody else. I feel like, gosh, there's a whole bunch more power in the world in the form of technology. Same old tensions, more people. This is going to pop off. Like, it's just, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying soon we will be at war with China. Like, no, I know some people say that, and it sounds stupid to me when they say that, but it's possible. But it doesn't have to be two nation states. It doesn't have to be anything. War is sort of a feature of human history, a recurrent feature. The reason that we pay attention to the next war is because it's going to be very different than the last one, than the last major one. Like Einstein said, he doesn't know how World War III is going to be fought, but World War IV is going to be fought with sticks and stones. That hopefully he's wrong about that. Hopefully we never have another world war. But what does it look like? Well, the problems most of them have to be solved in advance. I mean, you're just not going to have time, especially if your opponent has been preparing. Whatever entity, nation state, organized criminal syndicate, super hacker collective that somehow has, I mean, they have more leverage. Like individuals and small groups have way more leverage today than they ever had in the past. So the idea that you need some, I don't know, nation state. But anyway, seems a bit anachronistic. So a lot of solutions already in existence being deployed, new solutions critical in the moment that are not yet, that do not yet exist, being created by players in the computer control game, solving, because that's what they do. But also, like, a lot of the problems that need to be solved in the moment are going to be deployment. That's more like AI engineers, as opposed to AI researchers. And what are they? What are the problems? They're hard game problem environments. They're hard environments. They're partially observable environments, multi-agent, non-deterministic, sequential as opposed to one-off decision making, dynamic, continuous, and unknown rules sorts of environments. And then I just give the citations for that stuff. Okay, that's it. That's chapter 5. Feels like we're making progress on whatever we're doing, which I don't quite understand, honestly. All right, so day 5, chapter 5. Tomorrow's day 6. Guess what we're doing? Chapter 6, same time, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Notes and stuff are in the feed, in the YouTube channel, retraice.com, retraice.com, and we will pick it up tomorrow. We're talking about constraint satisfaction problems. That's the other thing that I noticed about war AI versus peace AI, is that war AI is just it just feels like it's more on the factory floor or in the spreadsheet and in Excel. It's like it's that sort of stuff where it's like, but that's commerce AI. It's not peace. There's no peace. There is no peace. There's only business without war and business with war. But you can think in the mindset of peace. And I'm not just like supposing that just to fill a category. They say it. It's their second stance toward multi-agent environments, which in a sense, all agents are multi-environment. They say you can consider adversarial agents as just part of the environment. That's peacetime AI. That's peace AI. There's nothing else going on. We can just chill and build capacity and play. All right. Anyway, same time tomorrow, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, Retraice 108, I guess. Right? All right. Signing off.